What to get when you get a fairly free open Saturday afternoon, an ability to not be able to get good questions out of your head without going through large rabbit holes, and a credit card confirmation that you did pay your ChatGPT subscription for the month. Well, if you're Jay Clifton Payne, that's me, you end up with something like this. A video essay called The Real World Viabilities and Dangers of a Squid Game. Because I do videos, I talk about things that are conversational, and I've been wanting to do some video essays. And this is what we have. And what we have in this particular video essay is a joint AI-generated psychologist and economics report on this presented by the Conversation Project. Now, I have various channels online to do this stuff here, so this is where it seemed to happen. Squid Game, as of today, being the 30th or the 29th of June, it came out over the weekend, Friday, for the full season 3 of Squid Game. And now that we've seen the full 3 seasons, the game is over, the series is over, question marks about what happens from here. I got to wondering, could a Squid Game actually be something that's viable? And because I had ChatGPT to ask, I made a prompt that was a psychologist and a prompt that was an economist to come up with reports, put them together to talk about how this stuff could actually happen, or how we can avoid from this happening in our reality. In reality, spoiler alert, we're not that quite far off from it happening, but it's a bit more complicated than saying, yeah, you'll go walk around and a guy in a mask will offer you $1 billion won just to kill someone else in kid games. It's not quite that simple. Or is it? Hey y'all, Editing Jay here with a brief synopsis of the show Squid Game, which is a Netflix show, as we're going to go into this thing here. But before we get too deep into this talk about it, can Squid Game happen down the street from you, here's what we're talking about for folks who have been living on the rock and may have missed the recent premiere of season 3 of the show. Squid Game is a South Korean thriller and social drama that explores the brutal consequences of economic desperation. Set in a world where financially broken individuals are lured into playing traditional children's games for a massive cash prize, the series asks unsettling questions about morality, survival, and the price of inequity. In season 1, with the theme being desperation, debt, and human instinct, a group of financially ruined people are invited to participate in a mysterious competition offering life-changing money. They soon realize that games test not just their bodies, but their ethics, trust, and psychological endurance. In season 2, themes vengeance, systems, and hidden power. It deepens the story in its mythology of what's going on behind the games, shifting focus to what happens after the initial games, explores the wider network behind the competition, and delves into the moral struggles of those who've actually survived it and those who run them themselves. Season 3, which just came out a few days ago as we record this video, deals with rebellion, corruption, and legacy, where this season takes the global expanding scale of the consequences of the games and puts it into your hands. It examines the legacy of the power, the dangers of institutionalized cruelty, and the risk of trying to dismantle a broken system from within. And as far as any real need for disclaimers, I'll also remind you that this isn't real. This show in 3 seasons turned out the way it did because of character arcs and the way the actors and the way the directors and the way the writers wanted the story to be carried out and wanted a specific ending to the show, including a very interesting end, a very special surprise at the end of season 3, something that you have to watch to get out of it. No spoilers in this thing at all. But remember, this is just a TV show. We may be talking about how reality it is to get into these situations, but Squid Game is based off of the reactions and actions of people as they were written, maybe rewritten a few times as it came out there. This is not real life. There's no reason to think that we would not do the right things in the right situations, except we are humans and we tend to not do the right things in the right situations. So with that, you have the details of Squid Game without any spoilers of what happens, who lives, who dies, and all the blood and guts that happens. There's a lot of all that happening there. Back to the actual video and the question remaining, can we get there? Can we keep from getting there? Are we there? Section 1. Psychological breakdown. Why people would willingly participate. First up, it's a psychologist or the AI psychologist. Remember, all these things are done through the lens of AI, so it is telling me kind of what I want to hear, but it does go to some bits and pieces that seem fairly relevant. Let's talk about Squid Game. The idea of Squid Games, or the Squid Game TV show, or Squid Game as it would be, is no longer speculative fiction and no longer a Mr. Beast sort of amalgam that sort of apes off the fame of the actual infamy. It's actually an allegory that roots in observable reality. Participants in such a contest, while unthinkable for some, will be seen by others as a logical decision under unbearable pressure. That unbearable pressure can include things like crushing debt and financial desperation. Think about a single parent who's facing eviction. They can't afford childcare. They have about $80,000 worth of medical bills that must be paid. The chance to play a game for life-changing money, even though it could be deadly, feels like a less risky option than their everyday existence. It's not them being crazy. For them, it's a distorted cost-benefit analysis that they're seeing under duress. There is also the real situation of emotional exhaustion and resignation. It's not about the seeking of the thrills. It's about individuals who are numbed by rejection and evictions and systematic racism and generational poverty. They become so worn down by being invisible to the system, they don't have a fear for death. Death is actually a good way out, if you will. Squid Game doesn't appeal to the adrenaline of the action. It appeals to people who are dealing with pure hopelessness. There's no place else to go, so why not do this? There is a lure of instant redemption where many can see a game as a gamble, but only the gamble they have, the only shot they have left to actually make this work. When you see like you're back against the wall and there's no other way to do this and you're facing nothing, why not take a shot like this, as deadly and as outlandish as it seems? Similar to psychology of lottery addictions, people who will pay the lottery by, and I'm one of those folks who play the lottery pretty much consistently, knowing that I'm not going to win, there's a fantasy of one big win that can overwrite the rational thought. Essentially, a degenerate gambler keeps going to the tables because if they win big, they will overcome all the losses in the past. And so, what if I'm the one that gets the game won? I'm the one who beats the game. There's a thought process of the lottery that someone's going to win, but it's not going to be you. But the delusion that it actually might be you, it's a pretty big delusion. But if it happens, hey, some people are crazy until they're proven not. And oddly enough, reality entertainment normalization. We're already here. Participants will eat bugs, they'll manipulate each other for social survival, or they'll endure humiliation to the extremes. Survivor, Big Brother, Fear Factors, those are just 3 shows that have been in the couple of decades that reality TV has been real. They've always had some sort of documentary TV. But the leap to physical danger is smaller than you want to admit in the actual process of what we'll watch on TV. If a producer could put a $10 million carrot out there for a person to win, rebrand it as extreme competition, somebody would sign up for it. Would you? Section 2. Economic realities. Could a society sanction this? We're going to go to the economist view in this part of the actual video, where the psychologist is like, this is why a person in this situation would think this way and go for it, because it's there. As an economist, it's really about literally how the scales balance just things out. It's not so much about just the money, but can the actual life of the world we live in, work if we did something like this one? And yes, there are movies such as The Running Man, which is essentially a game show about people trying to survive in a maze being chased by killers for grand prizes. But here we talk people who are going in there for other reasons. In The Running Man, they are prisoners who are giving a chance to survive, the chance to get out of jail. Here, same general thought process. People who are given a chance to get out of a very just degenerate lifestyle, something that's really deadly for them, not having the funds, not having the means, and being basically at their last level. Can they make this happen? And would the foundation of our actual society allow this to exist in our world without, the media and labor systems and everybody else going nuts about it? The answer is yes. And there's some fairly simple reasons behind these answers. Let's start with The Purge, another movie that's about something in this vein, but not as a horror film, not as popcorn entertainment, but as an actual parable for how we live right now. The Purge imagines a society that legalizes violence to vent aggression. But let's go deeper into this one and go into the economic truth that we have right now. If we were to purge the poor people, it would relieve pressure from the bottom of the system. It's an efficient population control masked as liberation. Squid Game offers the illusion of choice when in fact it's desperation that eliminates the real agency. People have a choice to get themselves out of a situation when they're actually setting themselves up for being in the purge themselves. There's also something to think of called the commoditization of suffering. Consider this scenario about reality shows in general. They profit from emulation. They profit when people do something dumb and we can laugh at them, or make a bad choice and we can see them in the failure. Think about the insurance systems that actually work in this world, and they gamble on your survival. Whether it's fire, flood, earthquake, whatever damage is out there, for whatever coverage you have for, if it's not your property or your life, the insurance systems are out there to find a way to pay out on a loss. And for insurance companies to work, they try to pay out as little as possible on the biggest losses that they are. And we're also living in the gig economy right now. We are in the economy where people are working against each other for scraps and bonuses. You open your app for a rideshare group. Pick what one you want to be a part of. You open your app for a food delivery service. Pick whichever one you want to be a part of. You open your app for a grocery delivery service. Pick whichever one you want to be a part of. And you are sitting on a similar corner, similar circumstances, similar location, similar distance, looking for the similar thing. You want a little bit of cash. So the app bids you out to other people to see who is going to do the bidding. Do you want to drive somebody to the airport today? Do you want to pick up someone's groceries today? Are you down with grabbing a lunch for the group today for a little extra? And remember, this isn't something that's a luxury. This is not your full-time business where you're making loads of cash for it. This is something you're doing after hours, after you've done your 8 hours of work or whatever you've done before, to make a little extra money to make things live out. These are the metaphorical cousins of the Squid Game. A little more polished, a little more palatable for us in this world here, but they thrive under the same principle. You exploit the under-resourced for profit and viewer engagement. Yes, any person can say, hey, I have some tools. I'm going to set myself up to be a handyman and make some extra money. You can do that on your own. That's fine. But when it turns into the only way to survive is to make sure I drive so many people, so many hours, so many days in a week, it becomes an issue. Now, for economists, the term, it's voluntary, is actually a red herring. Now, don't think of economists as evil people, soulless people. Well, you can't think of soulless. Not so much evil. They're looking for the purest answer to what's happening in the economy, in the world around them, based on the conditions. If conditions change, what would change going forward? Modern economics has a knack for making coercion an actual choice, making it something that they want you to see, make you really want to push that red lever, but make you think it's your idea. So let's go back to the Uber thought, because it's in my notes. Nobody has to drive for Uber 70 hours a week. But if that's your choice over starvation, you can't make money for rent and for food for the month. It's not a real choice. You seem to have no idea what to do, so you'll do this one because it works. No one has to enter a deadly contest. In fact, all the people in the show Squid Game are given a choice. It opens up with a game to see how they played, and after playing back and forth, they got an invitation to join in on this larger game for winning money by playing games. They don't know that they're playing for death, but it's still there. If you're drowning in debt, and the alternative is play a game that may risk your life, the invitation starts to look more like a call of salvation than an actual threat to your life and livelihood. We live in a world right now where attention is currency. This world we live in right now, the viewership that you get, that I'm craving for right now, equals power. And morality can be crowdsourced. Society can be greenlit, and the game can be turned into something for sake of virality. Everyone is looking for eyeballs. I'm doing a video on Squid Game to hopefully get some eyeballs because Squid Game is new and fresh and right now in the zeitgeist of moments. I'm trying to do something slightly different than just go through a review. still hopefully people will tune into me. I am doing that myself. Now, if I were to hold an actual Squid Game like competition, that's a whole nother level. But it's a level that economists believe, or the IAI one believes at least, not so far off. Viewers don't actually ask how the sausage gets made if it's tasty sausage. If the feed that you see is exciting enough, you're not going to question the questionable actions of other people to watch them do what they do. That's why there's so many reality shows where people are just evil people, manipulative for the point of winning a game, winning some prize money, when in actuality they're portraying themselves for the world that they're jerks. Why is that? Viewership equals power. Section 3. Why society might let it happen. Here's the thing. We don't just leap into the Hunger Games just out of nowhere. We don't find ourselves in Brave New World just by clicking or snapping our fingers and just all seeing what's there. It doesn't quite work like the Wizard of Oz, where you drop a house on a witch and then you clap your feet together and you go back magically home. These things take time. These things take effort. These things are a slide. Your dystopia that you believe you're living in didn't just happen yesterday. And the dystopia that we believe we're going towards right now didn't come across from something a few actions ago. They've been in the works for a while. Why might a society actually let the Squid Game or some similar action like this happen? It's actually not that simple of a question. But it does have some very small, simple structure parts to build on, starting off specifically with structural rot and distraction from the rot of our structural system. Now, society is a social contract. It's literally we act like we do because we agree to do that. You stop at stop signs because you agree to do that. If you don't, then people who run them all the time are endangering the world based off that breaking of that social contract. But right now, the education system is unaffordable for many. Healthcare is seen as a luxury, and the housing market is totally unstable. And leaders often turn to something called bread and circuses. It's me again, Editing Jay, and we're going to jump into another rabbit hole inside of this rabbit hole on Squid Game and talk about the details quickly behind the thought process of bread and circuses. Now, what exactly are these bread and circuses issues? Well, pretty simple. Often called bread and games, comes from Latin panime et circuses, blah, blah, blah. It is attributed to Juvenal, a Roman poet active in the late 1st and early 2nd century, used in commonly to talk about cultural, political contexts that he discovered. In one of these contexts, the phrase goes to mean generate public approval, not by excellence in public service, but to give public policy, to make it look like a distraction, a diversion, to satisfy the basic needs of someone in the moment, so that they don't know that they're being screwed on the other end. Essentially, Juvenal saw that the Romans had a practice of providing free wheat to citizens and then going to much debt in some cases, going to the expenditures of the coffers for circus games and other forms of entertainment to show the people how much they loved and cared for them. In actuality, they were showing the people something else. It was sleight of hand because the actual Romans in charge were bribing other people, corrupting the government, and were pretty selfish and incompetent in getting things done. So in actuality, it's something akin to what we have right now when our government throws a nice little candy at us. In actuality, when in the background, they're doing not so great things to us in actual legislation. That's a quick version of bread and circuses. If you want to go deeper into that rabbit hole, check it out yourself. But right now, let's finish the rabbit hole about having a Squid Game near you. So that was a bit of a interjection that explained the processes, the reason behind the bread and circus phenomenon. But here's what it means for right now to keep this video going. People watching others suffer will forget for a while that they're suffering. Going to the Colosseum so they could, serve up the Jews to the lions lets other people know that the Jews have it really, really bad, and they don't have it so bad at the moment. So they go back to their own lives and realize, oh yeah, we've kind of got it bad. There are issues with actual legality not actually meeting up to what morality tends to be. If people sign a waiver, society actually feels less guilt about what happens because it comes to the thought process that They knew what they were doing. They knew what they were getting into. They knew the consequences. In reality, economic coercion is just legalized cruelty. You may get someone to sign a waiver, get someone to sign on the dotted line that they will take the responsibility of what's going to happen. But you already know the chances are pretty bad something bad's going to happen. You can televise this game and show people doing these audacious acts for the sake of getting eyeballs, getting clicks, getting people to watch in their downloadable portable devices by the time we're there. But the blame stays hidden. You can't blame the producer for what happens. You don't blame the Roman for feeding the Jew to the lion in the Colosseum, because it's just a part of the job. And we said this before, but it really is a reason of profit coming in from viewership. Take this scenario. As a person who produces things for a living, in some cases in real time now on a smaller scale, having to find people to help fund these things. If one episode of something called Real Deathmatch could bring in 10 million viewers, you get 10 million eyeballs, and the sponsorships on that would be worth millions because they would watch that and get those sponsorships on that. There's a producer who's going to pitch it. There's a production company who's going to greenlight it, and there will be people who will sign up to play. History has shown us that once you find profit in any equation, the ethical objections actually become footnotes. You can work them out of the way. You can not talk about them. You can just ignore some of the ethics if it's going to make someone money, because the whole point is making someone money could be a good thing because you can use some of that money to do better things. And the people who are literally caught in the crossfire, they're doing a solid for us, for entertainment, for making us money, and for what their contributions will turn out to be in the end. Plus, we're already doing it. There's a precedent on reality TV for things to happen. We already talked about Survivor specifically. Here are the parts that work in that game show, reality show, which may be 100 so seasons out of 30 years of existence. Contestants lie. They backstab. They form alliances. They manipulate to win cash and fame. These are all the things you get if you read The Prince, because it's all about backstabbing and doing what you can to continue to be the prince. But the stakes are now raised up because you're doing it not so much as a prince trying to hold on to your kingdom, but as a regular guy trying to manipulate, outwork, outmaneuver other folks to gain more than them. Add in more physical risks, remove some of the editing, and give some darker aesthetic to it. And suddenly Survivor looks a lot like a Squid Game, as it's played on an island where people are stuck there and have to work their way through various games to get to a final score win. There even is eliminations, if you will. Section 4. Final assessment as we grade the state of humanity. This one is a bit of a difficult one because we took all of the sections before and went into a fictional dystopian world where we would allow something like Squid Game. Now, let's go into the premise of the actual show. These were top secret, highly guarded games played out by the poor for the extremely rich to literally watch and gamble on. So this is the sort of thing that you'd see more of a black market thing. This is like, street fighting type stuff where you see people bet money on fighters to do what's going on. It's the same general thing. It is the premise of Bloodsport, if you will. But how would humanity work out if something like Squid Games was televised on one of the streaming services, or it was something that you went to for a live event in a various place, or live public event, whatever the WWE is calling their actual pay-per-views these days? How would you grade society right now in the state where we would actually go along with this and people would actually want to be part of this? The problem is twofold. Number one, the score we would get would be a C minus. The morality score that we're looking at right now is something akin to not quite pass, not quite failing, not really passing very well, but in most cases, we'll let you slide on, go to the next grade. The actuality is it's really more like a solid D. We really aren't doing very well with ourselves at all. That is the actual reality of what we're looking at. So when you have to think about where you want to be in this situation, how do we get ourselves out of this? Well, we'll get to that in a minute, but we're not actually quite there yet as the C minus comes. We're at the point where we could improve a little bit more, but we really aren't doing all that great. We're probably doing a great job getting to where we are. Ethical collapse is not here yet, but we should be worried about many things. There are warning signs. I have 4 of them here to look out for in how we live right now that you may not be thinking all that much of. So starting off with the fact that we already live stream violence, police shootings, and mental health breakdowns. And we do this on purpose. This is not me talking about some of the newest version of Cops where they go out live with unseen and chase people down and show what's going on there. This is not something that is produced in Hollywood to make sure that the streams are good and the quality is great. This is just us pulling out cameras to live stream our lives. In the summer of black people being shot by police, too many of these things were live streamed because the people in their cars, people in these situations, people dealing with these things didn't know what was going to happen, so they turned on a camera, or someone nearby turned on a camera. In the case of George Floyd, someone nearby just turned on a camera and saw what happened. And we see these things in clips and videos and sometimes streaming live all the time. There is an exploitation that's being rebranded as hustle culture, which is not a new phenomenon. Hustle culture has turned into something that went from a guy named Gary Vee saying, I used to sell baseball cards to kids at school, then I'd sold wine for my dad online. Now I want to buy the jets. That's mostly innocuous. But the fact that you have to work till you get there, and if you're not working, you're never going to get there, is a problem. So we exploit people in the culture of not giving up, not stopping, not taking a break, and they can't get ahead. It makes them feel like more of a failure. They can't quite hustle enough, so they can't quite make it. There is a nagging idea that making the poor people compete for crumbs can be seen as entertainment. Now, that may seem kind of harsh to you. The problem is, there is a nagging idea that making the poor compete for crumbs is seen as entertainment. I can't remember how many years back, but literally at the beginning of the streaming time we had with our phones and recording people's stuff, there was a extremely bad taste in your mouth trend of bum fights. Literally going out in the streets, paying homeless people maybe some money, probably some booze, probably some drugs, and making them fight each other just in the streets, doing what's going on. There were street fighting things as well. There were some people that got really famous about punching people out in the street just because they could make a couple bucks there. But literally the bum fights were people who had no agency, no reason not to go for it because there's no reason to not go for it. And there is an idea that already seems like something that ain't such a bad idea to give people something to engage in. Oh, public attention is the highest value currency. We already said that, but it is. Making shocking and painful and scandalous moves are actually more valuable than things that are empathetic, truthful, and loving. Bad news travels faster than good news. Bad news is more ingestible, meaning people will believe it, than good news. Even when the bad news is a total lie. It is what it is. People want to see, want to ingest, want that terrible stuff because it's like saccharin, it's like sugar, it's like heroin, it's like a drug that gives you a high and gets you more involved into something as opposed to, oh, this is great, or, oh, this is not so great, but it is what it is. Oh, we'll survive this. Oh, this is terrible. We should do something to change it. That's not what you're looking for. You're looking for the most spectacle you can get out of things. Shock value will make these things happen. But remember, we earned a C minus. We're not in D level yet. So with that, there are some signs of hope. Resistance movements from labor strikes to ethical tech design are growing. There are more people out there who are thinking about this in a future sort of limelight that realize that the less empathy we have for people and situations and what we're working towards, the worse off things will get. So there are people who are fighting for the rights. Maybe they're fighting for the rights and they're getting some actual movement in it. Maybe they're actually getting some sort of movement towards something that's a bit more ethical and better. Maybe they're not, but they're making their minds and their words and their thoughts known to others. And in the back, people who may not be ready to join those fights yet know that the fights exist for good or for ill. There's also the fact that viewers are increasingly critical of exploitative entertainment. You're seeing a backlash in some of these shows. You see how Mr. Beast's Beast Games got blasted for not being very good. And you know the realities of what happens in the actual reality TV shows. There's a whole lot of editing, a whole lot of clipping, a whole lot of sitting on a set for a long time waiting for things to change. While if we were to watch the Squid Game happen in real time and have like real people being injured and hurt while going on, would be something that is, may seem entertaining. Think about the last time you watched a player on the court, on the field, on the ice get hurt in real time, and you saw the team members basically surround the person while they attended to them. Not exactly all that thrilling. We watched about a few weeks ago, by the time this video comes out, in the NBA Finals, Ty Halliburton fall to the ground after his Achilles went out on him. In a previous game, he left he played limited minutes in a previous game because in a game before that one, he had to leave because of issues with his leg. And in a play where no one touched him, he did basically a stutter step and hit the ground in pain. He had to be taken away from the game. His teammates gathered around him for a moment while they attended to him. They had him walk out. You see him walking out to the locker room. He did not return. That's not what we're looking for. We can't watch Joe Theismann get his leg broken every single week. We just can't do that. It does not work in our values, at least not for the moment. That's a good thing. We also know that there's a rising push for fixes in the economy that would make these things less needed. Universal basic income, better healthcare access, and social safety nets. These are the things that prepare the people in the lower cases to be better off and not have to be so angry, not have to uprise, if you will. No bread for circuses. No need if you don't have to tell these suffering people that these people suffer more than you do, and you can watch their entertainment to get less suffering for yourselves. Final thought. Should you be worried about getting that train invite to play that game of flipping things that you probably don't know the actual rules to, but you could win a couple bucks off it? Maybe. So here's where we end on this video. Because like more of those questions I have in my head that are complicated, can't really answer, the answer is usually we should probably worry, but how much should we worry? The short answer is yes, we should worry about how we feel about things. We shouldn't expect a strange person in a nice suit to come to you and want to play Dalchi, whatever it's called, throwing paper at the ground. Because it's not actually about the person showing up to play the game to get you initiated into the system. It's because the system is already there. And it treats all of us as expendable. If you're no longer productive, if you're no longer a person that brings in a profit, if you're not a person who can bring a click in. So you're not going to wake up in a jumpsuit and face a giant doll to play hide and seek. That's probably not happening unless Mr. Beast is going to try another season of that thing, and we don't think that's going to happen. But you may find yourself in a situation where you have to work over 60 hours a week and get no insurance and benefits for those 60 hours. You might be forced to live stream for pain and to get donations. We're not that far away with things like GoFundMe, and there was actually an episode of Black Mirror in the last season where a person was trying to raise money, keep money going for a procedure that he paid for his wife. He found out at work about a website where people would do all sorts of disgusting things to themselves for money on a live stream, and he signed up for it to keep that money going. We're not quite there yet, or maybe we are. OF may not be for pain, but it is for a lot of people doing things that they would not necessarily do in most cases for donations. And guess what? You're probably already in a job that is brutal, and you may have to compete to keep that job in a market that wants to pay you more for exposure than for the actual work you do. That may be the situation you are living in right now, where you have to show how well you're working, not just produce a widget, but produce a widget while dancing around, or to produce a widget that does certain things. It's not just the work is good. It's the exposure that the work does for the company, maybe not even for you. And that's basically the first round of the game. So while we are not in the Squid Game society at the moment, we are Squid Game adjacent, so says the AI that gave me the script for this. Now, bear with me. We may not recognize the challenges that are out there as games that we can design to win in conditions. So the plausibility of going into some place and having to play against another person for cash prizes or your life is not there. We're not at the purge yet. Running Man has not been cast for a season of Peacock. Yes, American Gladiators is returning, not quite Running Man. But we may soon find ourselves playing something like this, not only on our own will and doing it in front of people, but legally. Because times change and conditions change. And while we have gotten closer and closer to our sci-fi dreams of the past, our sci-fi dreams of the future, which have grown from the ones we reached in the past, are still out there to be there. We can be entertained by something like Squid Game. We can be entertained by something like The Running Man. We can be entertained by something like Fear Factor. But we don't necessarily have to participate in it. We don't have to participate in it yet. And that is why we should be extremely worried about where we're going. Much thanks to everyone for indulging me in this very long rabbit hole of thought process I had on yesterday, and this very long thought process of editing and doing things on this day, this Sunday, day after. This is the longest sort of task, sort of video I've done on something this magnitude ever. So I'm glad to anybody who watched the bulk of it, especially if you got this far. More of these is all up to you. Your comments are what drive things for the conversation. So in the video comments, let me know thumbs up, thumbs down, just as if this was Gladiator, if the games should continue, or if the videos of this length of this much research and the ums and ahs will continue. As you see, we did some fun things with the movements there. Had the editing, some glitches. We're not at jump cuts yet. Please don't make me do jump cuts. And this guy back here. So if you liked it, if you got something out of it, we're going to use this for some future things and make things a bit more exciting for what we're doing in the future. But let me know if the right now is right now. And of course, the big question is Squid Game. Did you watch any of it? Did you give up on it season 1, season 2, season 3? Are you more entertained? Are you a person who's a wealthy, rich guy who wants a Squid Game of your own to gamble in? Or are you a bit worried that your situation could put you or someone you know into a desperation situation where they would play something like this for a chance to win their way out of some sort of desperate life and a big chunk of money? And if you want to email me directly, the conversation inbox, gmail.com. No spoilers in the comments, but let's talk about the show. It ended up pretty much exactly like I didn't think it was going to. I thought something was going to happen. It did not. I'm not sure if it's fulfilling, but it did end with an ending that actually goes to show that it never actually ends. Your comments on the video, comments on the Squid Game, comments on Squid Game Minneapolis, Poughkeepsie, Squid Game New Orleans, whatever. Very much warranted here on the video.